Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show on this fine Wednesday. It's really great to have you here. Yesterday was a demonstration that either Democrats don't really truly understand why it was they took such a shellacking in November, or they do, but they don't care. It is, it's just an amazing thing to watch yesterday. Couple of different things, and we'll play some of the audio. The Pete Hegseth hearing that took place yesterday, nomination, Department of Defense. Democrats have made it known from the beginning that they're going to do everything that they can to just trash on all of these people. It's humorous. Yesterday, during the hearings, a number of them kept noting, well, you know, if you hadn't refused to visit with me, I could have asked you these questions. I mean, these people have been saying from the beginning that they're not going to support him. Why would he waste his time? I don't blame him. I mean, this is part of the attitude and approach we need in Washington, whether it be Trump or Hegseth or anyone else. If it's going to be a waste of time, don't do it. This going through the motions and, okay, well, we know what Democrats are going to do. Democrats are going to trash on me. They're going to oppose me, but I got to go. I got to sit with them. That way, you know, it's just the way you do things. I appreciate the fact that Hegseth was like, no. Clearly, what would be the point? If these senators were genuine, this is why I would meet with some Republicans that initially were publicly like, well, I don't know, got some questions. He recognized that these were individuals that were actually willing to listen, potentially change their mind. They had some questions, and he recognized in his judgment that those particular senators were individuals that he felt would ask questions they had of concerns, and they would actually listen to his answer for the purposes of weighing whether or not to support him. Democrats have out of the gate, with the exception of, like, Fetterman, who has recognized, hey, this is part of how elections work. A president gets elected, and then he chooses his cabinet. He chooses the people that he surrounds himself with. But with the exception of Fetterman, these other Democrats have said from the beginning, they're not going to, support the guy. The guy, so why would he? Why waste his time? This is a refreshing approach. And it would be nice, and we may see more of this. An approach in which, if it's going to be a way, if it's just for show, we're not going to do it. This is what you may recall got Trump in trouble when he was, just the first time around, and he realized that these daily meetings with intelligence, it was like the same thing many days. And Trump was like, we talked about this yesterday. Well, we don't have anything new. So Trump's like, well, if we don't have anything new, we don't need to meet. They went nuts. Well, what do you mean? You have to meet with us every day, even if we don't have anything new. That's where Chuck Schumer somewhat famously said on Rachel Maddow, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Intelligence community, they can get you any which way but Thursday, or whatever phraseology you use, just openly saying they're going to get you now. So much of what occurs in Washington, it's just for show. It's all theater. It's okay, well, we got to do it this way because this is the way it's done. And I really appreciate this approach of, if it's not going to make any difference, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste the taxpayers' time. I'm not going to waste time that I could be spending doing something meaningful elsewhere. There are so many things that there should be grave concerns about our military. Even if you're political and you want to be in defense of the last 4 years, the disastrous 4 years of Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin and these others, you could still ask questions about recruitment issues. I mean, we have a recruitment problem. You can acknowledge that without making Biden look bad. Ask questions about that. Ask questions about, hey, do you think that when it comes to the border, there's a role for the military to play in there? Trump has kind of talked about that. What are your thoughts on it? And it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to answer all of the questions, but at least those are questions that are relevant. I mean, instead, they're talking about, oh, well, somebody said you drank too much once, or you had an affair on your wife once. Are you kidding me? From the Democrat Party? Are you serious? Then in the House yesterday, there was the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. This is essentially to stop the elimination of girls' sports. Because the path that we're on, and really in a lot of areas, girls' sports has been eliminated. Now, they say it hasn't been eliminated, but it has been. If a boy can simply say, I'm a girl, and then girls are forced to compete against the boy, there is no all-girls sports. So the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act is to protect the women's sports from being eliminated. Only 2 Democrats in the entire House voted to protect girls' sports. Every single other Democrat voted for the elimination of all girls' sports. If there's one issue that overwhelmingly Americans are on one side of, it's this particular issue in protection of girls, in protection of the acknowledgement of science. And every Democrat but 2? You want to talk about a day that brings into focus, this is a political party that, again, either has not learned their lessons about why all the hand-wringing, we got to figure out what we did wrong. I don't understand what's going on here. Boy, they either really, truly don't care, or they are so obtuse. They have the inability to figure this stuff out. To their own demise, keep it up. We got weather in a moment right now. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 46. And on Friday we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon. Otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 55.
The story that was just there from Color 10, and I don't know how they, craft the stories. The verbiage that they oftentimes come up with is verbiage that is based off of the information that they get from the interested parties. So you have this evolution into referring to it, of course, as sex assigned at birth. No one is assigned. I know many of you know this, but I just believe it is important every once in a while to lay these markers down in order to prevent the rewriting of language, the denial of science. No one is assigned sex at birth. This is a terminology that was developed by those, many of which, frankly, are perverts, and they have this obsession with kids and their genitalia. This is a terminology that was used to make it sound as if, there's no science whatsoever to one's sex or gender or biology, that it's just something that doctors randomly at the hospital pick. You just think about the absurdity of it, right? The notion that doctors and all of the millions and millions and millions and millions of births that have taken place just in this country alone, That doctors are just, I guess this is part of medical school. Oh, bonus, you get to pick the sex. You get to assign a sex to a child. I've not been through medical school. Maybe somebody who has been through medical school can correct me on this. I don't think that that's something that is taught. I don't believe that there are classes on, you get to assign gender. You just kind of know. In fact, probably anybody could do it. Oh, you don't even have to say it's a boy or it's a girl. You got to hold it up and everyone knows. That's not assignment any more than assigning a child 10 fingers and 10 toes. Or when they're like, it's an 8.2-pound baby and however many inches long. That's not an assignment. That's not a that's just what the baby is. Science. And again, I know so many of you know this, but I do believe that it is important every so often to just remind and to just put that marker down. Hey, just so we're all on the same page here, no one is assigning the sex of a child. They're observing it. They're recognizing it. They're not assigning it. Latest traffic. Only 2 House Democrats voted for bill to prevent men from competing in women's sports. And I'd like to note again that they want to talk about this is about transgenders. No, it is about women. And you know how we know this? Because every single time there is a news item about an athlete being injured because of transgenders that are competing in sports, or an athlete losing a scholarship, or an athlete losing a slot, state competition or whatever it might be, it's a girl. We don't ever hear about boys. We don't ever hear about oh, well, this boy was injured because a female identifying as a boy was disproportionately stronger when it came to this particular sport. We don't hear that. It's because it doesn't happen. We don't hear about the boys that lose out on scholarships or that would have gone on to state, but they aren't because a girl that's competing as a boy took their slot. We don't hear about that because it doesn't happen. The victim is always a girl. And when it came to the protection, so the protection of women and girls in sports act, it passed the House 218 to 206 with only two Democratic lawmakers, Texas Representative Vicente Gonzalez and Henry Culler, voting in favor. So two men. Think about that for a moment. You want to talk about being obedient little girls, little women in the Democrat Party? Every single female Democrat member of Congress voted against protecting girls' sports. Every one of them. What a strong delegation of women. What an embarrassing shame. I mean, you got to give Democrats credit. They apparently know whatever the secret formula is to keep little Missy in line. That there wasn't a single woman willing to stand up in the Democrat caucus? Not one? That is insane to me. Yesterday, so Ocasio-Cortez, among other things, got up on the floor and she claimed that this really isn't about protecting girls in sports, that this is a desire. This is how far and how delusional and nutty and hysterical the Democrats have become. She claimed that the number one reason Republicans support this is because they want to be able to verify this with little girls, to look in their panties, to do genital examinations. Quote, to open up gender and, yes, genital examination into little girls of this country in the so-called name of attacking trans girls. It's interesting here, even in her hysterical allegation, she's acknowledging that girls are the ones that are always the victims here, and that's who the attempt is to protect. Because she doesn't reference doing genital examination of boys. And when she talks about girls, she's talking about what she calls trans girls, which are actually the boys. So anyway, it's not going the other way around, which is an acknowledgement that girls are the victims. This is how twisted these people have become. Incidentally, her argument here that, well, if we're going to say that girls should have their own sports and boys should have their own sports, which is actually law right now that is being violated, that means that there's going to have to be genital checks. Really? Because it hasn't been that way since Title IX was put into effect. See, this isn't a new rule. What they want you to believe is that we've always allowed boys to compete against girls. Oh, that's something. And now these crazy right-wing Republicans have come along, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're like, no, only girls should be able to compete against girls, and boys should be competing against boys. And because this is a new thing, there's only one way to verify it, and that's to do genital checks. As usual, even the premise for their argument is not based in reality. For generations, girls have not been forced to compete against boys since Title IX. We haven't done genital checks. Was this done when you were growing up? And if you were whether you're a boy or a girl, and you signed up for the t-ball team, or you got into gymnastics or soccer or volleyball or basketball or swimming, and it's that first day, do they do a genital check to make sure that you actually were a girl or were a boy? No. That's never been done. This isn't a new idea, having only girls' sports. We've been doing it this way for a long time. And we've been able to do it without genital checks. Something apparently Ocasio-Cortez is too hysterical to recognize. Riley Gaines spoke out. I'm going to play some of her audio coming up. Riley Gaines, of course, has become, to a large degree, a spokesperson as she was forced to compete against a failed male swimmer who miserably could not compete in a meaningful way. And so his third year, I think it was, in college, said, oh, I'm a girl now. And then all of a sudden began doing really great. It was wonderful. Actually, he didn't do any better. It's just he was then competing against a gender that did not have the physical advantages that he did. And among other, incidentally, this isn't somebody, for those that don't know the background, that had been going through the hormone therapies and the sex change operations, fully male, arrogantly walking around with his male genitalia out in the open. And the girls were told, you have to deal with it. You have to take it. And if you have a problem with it, sweetheart, maybe you need counseling. That's what they told these girls. It's like the Democrats have taken women right back to the 50s. Oh, honey, you'd probably just need some therapy. We'll play Riley Gaines' audio coming up here in just a couple of moments. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. A few of your text messages regarding the vote yesterday in the House to protect girls' sports from essential elimination, in which only 2 Democrats, male, mind you, voted with Republicans to protect girls in sports. It always makes my head spin how much science the party of science denies. So true. Testicular injuries have increased 200% in women's sports. Yeah, that's I don't know if that statistic is accurate, but it makes an excellent point. Now, blue states are leaving the sex off of a birth certificate to cause the confusion, and then someone else noting these people are sick. It's the same thing with the driver's license and the birth certificate. If on a birth certificate, if we're going to determine that you just get to pick your biological sex, and so, we'll just not put it on the birth certificate. That way you can fill it in later. Then might as well not put weight or anything else that goes on a birth certificate. I don't even know I mean, obviously I have one. I've seen it, but never really looked at what's in it before. But any of these, designations that identify you. This is the point of a birth certificate, is to identify you. And if scientific identifying markers are irrelevant, then there's no point in having them. It's the same thing with the driver's license. This comes up every so often, and I think that there was some legislation pre-filed in Missouri dealing with this particular issue. I don't recall which way it was. But if you get to pick your own gender to be on a driver's license, then it's irrelevant. Because the whole point of that is so that you can be these are accepted scientific identifying markers, just like eye color and hair color and your height and your weight. And if those things change when you update your driver's license, of course, those numbers change on your driver's license. A little bit of an honor system there when it comes to your weight, of course. And again, the point is that that's why whenever you go to a club or you go to buy smokes and can I see your ID? And they look at the ID and they look at that picture and they look at the date to, make sure that based off of that factual information, you are this individual and that you meet the requirements necessary in order to make the transaction. If those things are all just a matter of opinion and you get to choose what they are, it becomes irrelevant, and there's no point in having driver's license. There's no point in having birth certificates. It all becomes totally irrelevant. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 46. And on Friday, we'll see a slight chance of rain in the afternoon. Otherwise, mostly sunny with a high near 55.
I wanted to play audio because she does such a great job of laying this out. And Riley Gaines, former swimmer, and she was one of the first vocal females pushing back against being told she had to compete, not just compete against a man, but she had to shower with a man, she had to use the restroom with a man, she had to do all these things, and if she didn't like it, she could seek therapy. This is why they patted her on the head and told her this. And she pushed back. And she wasn't any plan of hers. Circumstances put her in this place. And she, instead of doing what it was that the left told her to do and keep her pretty little mouth shut, the men are in charge, they're calling the shots, she said, no, I don't think so. And she's just so good, one, because she's been a victim of this, but two, she does a great job of just laying it all out straightforward. I don't know if she's gotten any sort of formal training once she began to realize that she was being listened to, that, hey, I should probably get some sort of speech delivering coach or something, but she's just become very, very good at it. And so I think that the cause is very lucky to have her as a spokesperson. So yesterday, the Republicans held a press conference after this legislation passed to protect women's sports. And as I noted earlier, every female Democrat voted against it. And there were only 2 Democrats that voted to protect girls' sports. And not just the sports, but girls in the restrooms and the whole kit and caboodle there. Only 2 Democrats. A number of different people spoke, Republican lawmakers, Speaker Johnson, and then Riley Gaines came up to the podium.
Well, thank you. Hello, my name is Riley Gaines. I am an ambassador for Independent Women's Voice. I am the vice chair of Athletes for America with America First Policy Institute, and I'm a former collegiate swimmer from the University of Kentucky. First, and let me echo Speaker Johnson's gratitude for the people who stand alongside me, behind me, their leadership on this issue, how they have stood firm, the flack that you all have taken. I know it's not easy, but nonetheless, it's necessary, and I would argue that it's urgent. And so I thank you all. And I'm thrilled with the passage of H.R. 28, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. But truthfully, I'm mad. I'm mad that this is something we have to do. I'm mad that we as women have to beg for equal rights. I'm mad that we have to beg for privacy in areas of undressing. And I'm mad that we have to beg for safety on the court or on the field or walking in the streets at night, for that matter. Here's some of the things. Let's just go through a couple of the things we heard on the House floor today from Democrats. We heard of things like genital exams. We heard that girls will be asked to show what's in their underwear. We heard that they have to show internal and external anatomy, inspections, Taliban-like enforcers, hire predators to peek at girls, on and on and on. Weird fear-mongering about predators. But that's what Democrats do best. If you don't know what they're up to, just look at what they're accusing the right of. There have only been a few girls. Another thing they said, there's only a few girls who have been injured at the hands of a boy. It's such a small percentage. I heard that this bill is a waste of time. And let me tell you the message I received when I heard that is that I'm a waste of time. Girls around the country, just like me, are a waste of time. Your daughters are a waste of time to all House Democrats except the 2 who voted in favor of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. But to Speaker Johnson's point, the American people spoke on November 5th. The common sense, everyday Americans who intuitively know that men and women are different. We reject this notion. While I certainly believe people turned out to the polls to embrace Donald Trump, to embrace his cabinet picks, to embrace the America First agenda, more so, truthfully, I believe that people turned out to the polls on November 5th to reject absurdity. And that is entirely and thoroughly what the Democratic Party has become, absurd. Whether it's feeling like you have to refer to Latino individuals as Latinx, believing that men can become women, believing that men can breastfeed, believing that tampons belong in boys' bathrooms, entirely and thoroughly absurd. I'm here today for one reason. Of course, I'm not here to speak on the policy, anything like that. I'm here to debunk every single thing you heard from the House Democrats today. I'm here to tell you that this isn't a hypothetical situation. No, it's reality. My story by now is seemingly well known, so I won't get into it. I could spend hours sharing the feelings and the emotions, the specifics behind watching a man steal a woman's national title, the feelings of humiliation and violation of having to strip down to nothing, fully unclothing yourself inches away from where a 6'4" man simultaneously fully exposed himself, stripping down to nothing, exposing his male genitalia non-consensually, might I add, which we used to properly label as some form of voyeurism or sexual harassment, indecent exposure. Now it's seemingly celebrated. Last fall, leading up to the election, the Independent Women launched the Riley Gaines Stand With Women scorecard. It was a first-of-its-kind resource that tells Americans who stands with women and who does not. The scorecard had a pivotal impact, delivering a 90% win rate for those who were Riley Gaines approved. I was honored to put my name to such a significant effort. No more hiding behind these phrases and taglines that the Democrats use, saying they're for women's rights. Go back and look at who voted in support of the Lake and Riley Act. Look at who voted in support of protecting women and girls in sports. And if they were no on one or both, then they do not get to say they support women. Men do not belong in women's sports. And with the House passage of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, we are one step closer as a nation to making sure that not one more male athlete is able to take a trophy, a roster spot, playing time, resources, or an opportunity to compete from a woman. The American people, again, we believe that women's sports are for women. I cannot believe we have to say this, but unfortunately we do. It matters. Last thing I'll say, if you're curious how your representative voted, your senator, any federal elected official, how well they stand with women, you can check that out at RileyGainesScorecard.com. Again, appreciate you guys and appreciate the leadership of the people here standing beside me today. So thank you.
All right. So that again was yesterday after the vote in the House, in which all Republicans voted for the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Every Democrat except two voted against it. Can you believe that in 2025 we're having to pass these sorts of protections for women? That is insane. How many decades the Democrat Party has rolled back women's rights that they have to go to their members of Congress and ask for legislation to be passed to protect them so that they can just, aside from the gender component to this, you also have the freedom of assembly. I mean, this is something that is spelled out in the Bill of Rights as a human right that constitutionally is recognized as a God-given right. And the freedom to assemble means you are allowed to assemble with people of your choosing. And girls are being told, no, you don't. Girls who say, I only want to compete against biological females and with biological females are told they do not have that right of assembly. Aside from the equality component to this, you've got the foundation of that freedom of assembly violation that's occurring here. Freedom of assembly means you get to freely assemble with whomever you want. It doesn't mean, well, as long as the government approves of it or will tell you with whom you get to assemble. But when it comes, particularly, you look at that freedom of assemble component to this, and I know it doesn't really ever get recognized or talked at as a component to this, but when you're talking about the Constitution is, when it's laying out these no-nos, it's no-nos to government. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of press. That is specifically telling government these are human God-given rights, and these are no-nos. You cannot mess with these. Well, under what jurisdictions is it that girls are being told they don't have the freedom to assemble with those with whom they want? It's government. In fact, government is the one that is requiring it to occur, the violation, in government-run schools. I mean, if you have some private entity Has nothing whatsoever to do with schools. You got these recreational teams. They're like, hey, we're going to, let boys and girls mix together. We're going to, do this or whatever. Then fine, go ahead. You want to have teams and only clowns. Certified clowns are allowed to knock yourself out. But do we have a government that tells girls that they do not have the right to assemble with those who that they choose? I mean, what year is this? And then the righteous indignation of Democrats standing as if they have some sort of moral high ground for telling girls to keep their mouths shut. That they don't have the right to assemble with whom they choose. They want to portray this as, oh, well, it's not an issue about girls. Why is it girls are always the victim? It's never the boys. Scientifically speaking. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I want to explain how this is happening with this increased deal with the obsession with transgenderism. Now, the way that the left want, what they tell you is that, well, gender and sex is just, it's always something that you've been able to choose. It's just, we've had, somewhere at some point, you had this patriarchy that just decided. And some claim that it's capitalist. I think the communists can't claim it's capitalist. But it's always some evil entity that came up with this idea that we were going to start designating boys and girls. Now, they can't tell you exactly who it is when this happened. I mean, you could read the Bible and references to men and women, and it's just something that has been going on for a very, very, very long time. So what group of conspirators, prior to the ability to communicate over distances, came up with this idea and then was able to successfully cover the planet with their plan and convince everyone, hey, you know what we're going to start doing now? Instead of people just choosing their own gender, we are going to, for nefarious purposes, start assigning it, okay? And that's just the thing now. Of course, there's no history, there's no records of this occurring, there's no indication as to when this started, but this is just what the left wants you to believe. And because finally the compassionate people in our society have begun to recognize that reality. This is why all of a sudden there is a rise in the number of transgender kids. They've always been there. It's just they were oppressed. But here's what is actually happening. Human beings go through a period of time, puberty, that is kind of weird. It's always been that way. It's weird only in that it isn't at that point in time or up until that point in time for every individual child, something that has not been part of their life. So it's different. And it seems weird because it's different. Now, it's not weird in the sense that it happens to everyone. Happens to everyone. So it's no more weird or abnormal than, the feelings of confusion than growing hair or fingernails or any other thing that the body goes through, right? Going to the bathroom. Those feelings of confusion and the new hormones that are coming about, and you're sad and you're angry, and then the next day you're really happy and all that stuff. That is something that we've all gone through. And in fact, many of you, I was one of these, we were in fifth grade. And I remember they put all the boys in one class and all the girls in another class. And then we watched a video and talked about, they're changing bodies and this is what to expect. And explaining to us that this is how that, quote, confusion was dealt with at the time. Hey, it's okay. Everyone's going through this. And you're going to get through it. So there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing abnormal about you. This is perfectly normal. Yes, we know it's not fun. And you're going to sometimes feel like crying for no reason. And, girls got a little bit different class than the boys got. What has happened in the more modern era, since this whole trans craze is something that Democrats have latched onto, is you've got TikTok largely, and you have people that are part of this trans movement on there. And it has, because of Democrats, become a political movement. And they get on there and they tell their story about, how they were confused. And instead of what we all know is to be the truth, hey, this is absolutely normal, they tell that, you get some 12, 13-year-old girl who is upset, and maybe she was a victim of sexual assault, so she hates her body. She feels like her body is a draw to this sort of violence. And there's somebody on TikTok saying, you know what, I felt that same way, and it was because I was actually really a boy. And oh my gosh, once I realized that, it fixed everything. This is very, very prevalent. You talk to any transitioner, their stories are all almost identical. They get on social media. They're told by people what you're feeling isn't normal. And the reason you're feeling it's not because of trauma or, and there's varied degrees here. Some is just the natural, normal feeling of confusion and the emotional swings. And for some, particularly girls, you've got the sexual assault component, which makes them not like their body, and autism. Autistic people are also a target of this whole industry. And so they tell them that you are probably just really trapped in the wrong body. And boy, I got these hormones and I got sex change operation, all these things. And everything's wonderful now. And so then they think this is the answer. You compound that with, you have what I believe are psychopaths in the medical industry and the education industry and in the Democrat Party that then take those kids who get that extremely damaging information online and they validate, saying, oh yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. This has become a big moneymaker for a lot of companies. Planned Parenthood, they've really shifted their revenue focus in many ways from abortion to this transgender stuff. And so they take these kids, that oftentimes are going through something perfectly normal or do have emotional issues or are autistic get convinced through apps like TikTok that what's wrong with them is they're in the wrong body, they need a sex change operation. Then from there, they get handed off to these psychopaths in the pro movement, education, again, medical industry, and so forth, and they take them from there. That's why all of this is occurring. That's why we're seeing this increase. What we're also seeing is the increase of those who, in the aftermath, are victims. And in fact, there is I thought this was interesting. There are over 100 of these victims that have signed a letter expressing support for RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. This is a horrific thing. It is, history will look back on this. And these people, as barbaric, horrific experimenters on young people, many of which who really, truly do have issues, and instead of helping them, using their issues against them in order to do this irreparable harm to them. The real sickness is in the heads of the people who continue to promote this and support this. And every single one of the Democrats, minus two, who voted against protecting the girls in girls' sports, all in the name of butchering young children. Springfield, home of the single largest woodworking and metalworking showroom in the entire world, over 35,000 square feet, 600 machines on display. This, yes, friends, Grizzly Industrial. You didn't know it was open to the public? You didn't know that just the average person who maybe is picking up the hobby already has the hobby of woodworking or metalworking? You didn't know this? You thought because of the impressive nature of the way it looks and the footprint that it has on Kansas Expressway and Battlefield, surely it's just for industry people? Well, surely you've been wrong all this time for over 25 years. Open to the public. 0% financing, and they're non-commissioned. So if you're worried, I'm going to get in there, they're going to like, but here's the 3,500, and it's, awesome and even better. Just to get a few extra bucks out of you, don't have to worry about it. They're not like that anyhow, but being non-commissioned, it is a non-issue. Grizzly Industrial coming up. News in 60 seconds. Everybody, welcome to the show. We are broadcasting live right here in Springfield from the KSGF studios. Streaming online, ksgf.com, podcast, Spotify, iTunes, the KSGF app. We've got video streaming that is on YouTube. And anything else I'm missing there?
I don't think so.
All the wonderful places to...
You can get the podcast at ksgf.com or on the KSGF app.
Who was I? I was having a conversation with... I don't even remember who it was. But it was asking what I did, and I told him, oh, really? And I said, 1041. And I said, we're on AM as well. I said, but what we really promote 1041, the FM frequency. And I said, of course, we stream online. We have an app, and then we have our own podcast section, and we're Spotify, iTunes, and all that. And he goes, oh, so you guys are like everywhere. I said, yeah, pretty much everywhere. When the whole internet thing came up in the streaming, and people were like, oh, no, what's going to happen to radio? I was like, that just makes your phone a radio. I mean, it's just like, I know I see things differently than a lot of people do. And of course, there was competition in the fact that with the streaming, it gave people more access. I think when you're local, though, at least with people locally, you can offer something that people who aren't local can't. So they can't really counter that. But I just always thought, well, that's the streaming thing is actually great for radio because now you can get us in all these other new places. You can now listen to us on your computer at the time. And when the streaming came about, it wasn't a phone thing, but that's what has evolved since then. And so all it's done is it's expanded what has become radio. And I'd say it's worked out pretty good for us so far.
That's right. I mean, you got listeners all the way up in Wisconsin and across the world. It's pretty cool.
I'm always interested when we do get people who respond or correspond with us and like, oh, we listen in California, whatever, I'm always asking, like, how did you find us? And usually they either lived here at one point or they were visiting someone here, or a lot of times truck drivers, they drive through and they find us and then they just like what they hear. And so then they check out the app and then they start listening to us that way. But yeah, it's always kind of fun to get those. But a lot of times I know Texas and Florida, we have a lot of people who used to live here in this area that now live in Texas and Florida. So we get some of those. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it keeps them in the loop as to what's going on in the old Springfield area.
I just pulled up top countries in the last 30 days for you: United States, Russia, Japan, Brazil, Germany, and United Kingdom.
Ah,
there you go.
Very interesting.
Next 30 days.
Russia number 2, huh?
Yeah.
Well, probably because I'm a Putin puppet or something. Yeah. I don't know. Kamala Harris has refused to invite J.D. Vance for the traditional visit to the vice presidential residency. This is part of the tradition that always occurs. The outgoing vice president has the incoming vice president to the Naval Observatory residence so they can, just walk them through it. How it may seem like sort of, why? What's the point? But I mean, you're going to be living there, and you don't want to see the place before moving day, right? It does make sense. Plus, you have staff, and there's certain things, protocol, and so forth, I'm sure. And so there's just been this tradition. Well, apparently, Kamala Harris is refusing, throwing a little bit of a tizzy fit here. Several Democrat and Republican sources confirmed to CBS News that Harris is refusing the traditional sit-down meeting or tour of the Naval Observatory residence, which has served home to the vice president since the 1970s. The Vances, however, were given a briefing on the home by naval officials since Kamala refuses to do so. This has allowed the Vance family to plan ahead for how their desired specifications, which would include child-proofing. They got small kids, and so child-proofing their 3 children that are under the age of 8, per CBS News. The questions were initially rebuffed by a Harris political appointee, but there has since been communication between the Vance team and Navy aides who oversee the residence. Before Christmas, Navy officials provided an overview of the house to discuss the layout of the residence, logistics, practicalities of the move-in, and to help answer any questions the Vances had, a person familiar with the call said. Usha Vance, J.D. Vance's wife, was able to speak with Emhoff for about 40 minutes last week, sources said. Harris sources said the arrangements are underway to accommodate the Vance children. Do you think that there's any connection between old Dougie Emhoff, who's known as a ladies' man, and the fact that Usha Vance is a pretty good-looking gal? He's like, oh, well, I'll talk to his wife. You can imagine
Right,
that.
yeah.
Kamala's like, no, I'm not going to. Not going to do it. He's like, hey, that wife of his, you want to make some sort of phone connection, I'll be more than happy to help her out, Or, in fact, we can meet. Well, that's probably okay. A phone call will suffice. All right, but, if she wants to actually, come over, maybe when Kamala's not here, so it's not as busy and uncomfortable and everything. And how about around dinner time? Does she like white wine? Phone call will be fine, Doug. Sources close to Harris said that she declined the offer. So this is what Harris's people said. Well, she is refusing to have Vance get the traditional ahead of time transitional tour and overlay of the home because she wasn't given the same meeting following Biden's victory in 2020. Now, of course, the media, CBS, contacted Mike Pence, and he's like, well, yeah, but she just didn't want to do it. Now, I'm not the biggest Mike Pence fan in the world, but if I got to figure out who's lying here, Kamala Harris or Mike Pence, I'm going to just barely lean over into the Kamala Harris's lying column here. I mean, Mike Pence, if anything, he's a gracious individual. And the idea that Mike Pence would refuse it's just ridiculous. It's, more lies coming up. Well, how catty? Can you get any more catty? Well, maybe. Michelle Obama apparently has announced that she's refusing to go to the inauguration. This after she refused to go to Jimmy Carter's funeral. Let's see, this marks her second snub of the soon-to-be 47th president in as many weeks. Now, Barack's going to go. But, you saw him at the funeral. He and Trump are buddies. So he's probably looking, he's like, can I sit next to you? The office of Barack and Michelle Obama shared the following statement to the Associated Press. Quote, former President Barack Obama is confirmed to attend the 60th inaugural ceremonies. Former First Lady Michelle Obama will not attend the upcoming inauguration. Now, when she refused to go to Jimmy Carter's funeral, they admitted, or her people said, well, she's on vacation. She didn't want to break her vacation short. No explanation has been given as to why it is that she's refusing to go to the inauguration. In addition to Barack Obama, the Clintons and the Bushes will also be in attendance, honoring Trump as he takes the oath of office. So this is, why is it she's just that bitter and catty? Some are speculating something else is going on there, that there's trouble in the marriage of the Obamas, or that she's having some sort of surgery. And this has prevented her from being out and seen in public. So it could be all that, or it just could be that she's a mean, nasty, bitter old woman. It's a number of different reasons. Everyone can decide for themselves. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 46. And on Friday, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon. Otherwise, mostly sunny with a high near 55.
Oh, per our conversation about listeners abroad, got a text. Truck driver in Minnesota this morning. Listen every morning. Well,
Aw.
all right. Well, thank you very much. Love that. Traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Maybe Big Mike is in the process of transitioning that regarding Michelle Obama's refusal to attend the inauguration. Yeah, that would be that. Arguably, that would be detransitioning. Do you ever hear every so often Greg Gutfeld? He'll throw in a Big Mike in there. I just looked at YouTube and birds are not real. LOL.
That's true.
Does that still pops up on that?
I guess so.
Yeah, it must.
That was back when we had just started our YouTube.
Yeah, we had TJ Miller on. He's an actor, comedian, voice actor, not just voice acting, but because he was at the Blue Room New Year's Eve, and before he called in to do the interview, he was just curious who we are, so he looked us up, and that was the first thing that he saw was this birds aren't real, and he said that he thought, oh man, who are these nut jobs? And then he watched it and realized that it was I think a segment from a show that we did, in which there was this birds aren't real guy. I'll explain who he is in a minute, but he held a rally downtown. That birds aren't real. They're like fake. They're not a real thing. And one of the local TV stations covered it, apparently not realizing that it was all kind of a farcical thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were kind of just joking and making fun of it. But the guy who started it because he would see these left-wing rallies where people would just chant these absurd things, and people would just chant along, and no matter how absurd it was, and little sayings that didn't make sense. Like guns have more rights than women do in America, things like that are not based anywhere in reality, but they just say it. And so he started showing up at some of these events and protesting birds aren't real just to see. If I remember correctly, in one of the interviews that he would eventually do after he kind of got famed for this, he said it was done to demonstrate the absurdity of some people on the left chanting these absurd things, that he was going to be in the mix and be like, yeah, birds aren't real. And then it sort of caught on, and some people kind of were like, well, this is interesting. Maybe birds aren't real. And then it became this sort of a joke movement. Have you ever seen that interview he's doing with one of the TV stations, and he pretends like he gets choked on milk or something during the interview?
I'm going to
Oh my, you have to look that up. It is so, I think that's what, it's an interview he's doing with, it's some local TV station, and while he's answering questions, he like throws up or something. I forget what it is, but it's really funny. Well, you look for that. Pete Hegseth yesterday. We learned, I think, there was perhaps a greater takeaway from Democrats than Pete Hegseth, and that is that Democrats have learned nothing. They're not serious. They're just not serious people. These people are a joke. I'm not saying that they need to automatically label him as a wonderful pick. I'm not saying that they shouldn't ask him hard questions. In fact, I think it would be great if they would ask hard questions, about like the military, about recruitment problems, about the potential military problems we face with countries like China. Oh, no. No, of course, they don't ask questions like that. They want to cut and paste certain things that he said so they can label him as anti-mom. They want to talk to him about an affair that he had, or that someone said he drank too much 20 years ago, or how, whatever. Things that have nothing whatsoever to do with the job. These are opportunities to find out if the person that Donald Trump is wanting to be the Department of Defense, to find out how he feels about those real serious situations that he will be dealing with in some capacity if he gets this appointment, which it looks like he's going to. I can't imagine any Republican at this point voting against him. If anything, honestly, some of these up in the air individuals, Hegseth, for example, Joni Ernst was like, well, I don't really know. And, there was all this talk about how she was kind of maneuvering behind the scenes because she wanted that position. And she has come out and said she's voting for him. I'm telling you that if she was still somewhat undecided or on the edge, what the Democrats did yesterday convinced her, well, I certainly can't vote with them now because they demonstrated what a bunch of just lunatics they are, who have no interest whatsoever in whether this individual is actually going to be good for this department. So the Democrats might, depending on how it is that somebody like Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr., some of these, they really don't want Democrats to get these positions because they don't want people to see Democrats and Republicans working together. They don't want to see Democrats or former Democrats, working within the Trump administration. They don't want any of that. So they really are going to push back against those individuals. But if they handle themselves well, Democrats could actually, if they behave the way that they did yesterday with Hegseth, help push them across the finish line. Because I know if I'm, a Susan Collins or a Murkowski or one of these wishy-washy Republicans that sides with the Democrats sometimes and sides with the Republicans sometimes, see, what they do is oftentimes they side with whomever it is they think is going to be politically expedient. Well, if the Democrats are acting like that, they certainly don't want to be associated with that, and so it could actually help some of these nominees get across the finish line. Democrats just cannot help themselves. One of the screeching individuals was Pocahontas, that being Elizabeth Warren, and she's such an idiot. Some of these people. She's talking about the revolving door, and this is a revolving door of generals, which Hegseth is not, but generals that upon retirement immediately go and get jobs within the military industrial complex.
They retire. Generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk to you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because it's not.
Think about it right now.
It's not one. My motivation for this job.
I understand that. I just need a yes or no here.
Come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years, but you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president.
Oh, I'll bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
All right, so of course she made a fool of herself there. He walked her into it. She's trying to get him to declare that he will not, as a general, upon leaving the Department of Defense, join some defense contracting company. Which he's like, I'm not even a general. This doesn't even apply to me. Whoops up back there, right there. There's actually a larger point on this, though. We got to take a break because what difference does it make? Now, I asked that question for a specific. Okay, so why? Why should generals not? Let's think about this for a moment. Why should generals not, or why should there be a 10-year period in which they are not able to then immediately go over and get hired by the military-industrial complex? And some of you may be thinking, well, I can think of a lot of good reasons. Stick with me here because I want to talk about this. I'm Nick Reed. All right, just got about 90 more seconds here before we get weather check and some more of this audio of the Hegseth event, if you will, that took place yesterday. First, traffic.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 46. And on Friday, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 55.
You know, we see the footage, the videos of these people who have lost their homes due to the fires, and there's an emotional component to it, even if one hasn't, lost a family member. And, sometimes we just think of houses as being a hassle, like, oh, we got to fix this, we got to fix that. But oftentimes, particularly if you grew up there or you raised your kids there, that there's a lot of emotional attachment to that. It's a really, really big deal sometimes. Of course, financially, it's huge as well. But it's so funny to me because something that is such a big financial commitment and at the same time can have such an emotional component to it, yet people just randomly find someone online to help them with that process. It seems really silly to me. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. One of the reasons I recommend her is she gets this, she understands this, and she's not just a volume person, as quickly and as many people as possible. And, I've got a huge team and you'll see me in the beginning and the very end. But other than that, you probably won't be dealing with me. She's your personal assistant through this. And she knows what it means to be selling a home and buying a home financially and also emotionally oftentimes. And it's just such an important thing for such a big deal. That's why I recommend Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. There was an exchange yesterday between Hegseth and Elizabeth Warren, who's an idiot. And in it, she is trying to peg him down on the, quote, revolving door. And she's talking about a 10-year moratorium or a 10-year inability, generals in the military, that they shouldn't be able to leave the military and then immediately go work for some military lobbyist or military industrial complex or, anything involved in that. They should not be able to do that. And she's trying to pin him down on whether or not he would put his money where his mouth is and pledge when he leaves to not do this same thing. And well, I'm not a general. This doesn't even apply to me. So then she shifts to, well, yeah, but you're going to be in charge. So, I mean, do you pledge to support this? I don't know that the person in the position that he is nominated for has the right to tell a retired general that they can or can't work somewhere. I mean, I would argue that if that is something that is constitutional to tell someone when you leave the military, this is a job you are not allowed to have, that would be something that would be legislative, I would think, which would be her realm. Which actually brings me to the larger point here. Now, why is it that it is not a good idea to have people that are high up in the military immediately leave and then go work for, in whatever capacity, the military-industrial complex? What's wrong with that? Now, the results, and what I believe the answer to that question is, well, because then, they've got the connections in Congress, and then they're going to be able to get, the machinery's going to continue because they'll go to their senator. They'll go to they'll be lobbying. They have those relationships already in play. And so they're just going to be able to get the money, keep it flowing, right? This is the implication. This is the problem with this. If that is the case, the problem then isn't a Pete Hegseth or a former general who has gone over to the military-industrial complex. The problem is the member of Congress who then votes in a way that benefits them. It's the Elizabeth Warrens of the world. As usual, what she is what she's trying to do here is craft this world, this scenario, saying that there's a real problem here with that revolving door. It's only a problem if Congress plays along. If Congress is susceptible to those former generals being part of the revolving door. All of this money that we're concerned about that's going to get churned out because of that revolving door is Congress is the one who has the purse strings. This is another one of those instances in which you have the people who are the problem pretending as if it's someone else and then calling for some regulation or law in order to prevent the problem from continuing to occur when they're the ones who are the problem. Campaign finance laws are the exact same thing. Well, politicians are corrupt because, we're corrupt because we just have too much money. So we need laws that don't put the amount of money that we can raise. It doesn't cap that, but it tells you how much you can give us. You're the problem somehow. We need to change the laws in order to restrict you. You notice whenever they talk about how there's a need to restrict campaign, it's not how much money they can get. No, it's not that. It's how much money you can give. They can get countless. That's why every campaign season, they're like, record number of dollars spent. Record number of dollars spent. Even though people can donate less today than they were able to years ago. And, this is just another one of those situations where you've got here Elizabeth Warren, who is the problem ultimately. The gatekeeper as to whether or not the military-industrial complex is a problem ultimately lies with whether or not Congress allows it to be. It certainly isn't something for Pete Hegseth to be responsible for. Gonna play some more. I can go ahead and play audio. Also, you had Senator Kaine. Senator Kaine, you may recall, was the former vice presidential candidate with Hillary Clinton. And instead of course, asking questions about military readiness, about China, about what's going on in Ukraine, about recruitment issues, about whether it's appropriate to use the military to secure our border, he wanted to talk about Pete Hegseth's affair.
Completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared. How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and
here.
you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And
aside from whether he did or not, what the hell does that have to do with the issue at hand? And are you serious? All of a sudden the Democrats have this moral barometer where if you have ever cheated on your significant other, you shouldn't have a power or a position of power in Washington, D.C. That's really what they want to go with? That's really what Democrats want to go with on this? Thank goodness what they're really concerned about is military readiness here in the context of the Department of Defense. Thank heavens they're being serious about this. Now, in regards to the Democrats focusing on the personal life of Hegseth, Republican Senator Mullins, during his Q&A with Hegseth, addressed this.
Questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary of Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped out the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce for cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
The only thing that would have been better is if he had started calling them out by name. This is beyond double standard. It's beyond dishonesty. It's beyond. I mentioned yesterday. I said this is the part of it that is potentially the most outrageous. What this guy has done serving his country, and to have trash politicians. Not all politicians are trash. Some of them demonstrated yesterday they certainly are. Elizabeth Warren, Tim Kaine being two of them. And to start railing on him about an affair that he had? Are you kidding? I tell you what it does actually demonstrate is they don't have any legitimate reason to vote against him. If that's the stuff, if that is their go-to, they have nothing whatsoever. Mullins pointing out there that, the Elizabeth Warren and this revolving door and Hegseth and, you won't come out against it. And Mullins noted we had to sign a waiver. We had to vote on a waiver for Austin because he was on one of these boards. But that's okay, of course, see. What an embarrassing display for this country. Can you imagine? If you're a serious person watching from abroad, and this is somebody that what is supposed to be this serious, deliberative body questioning this individual about whether or not he is going to be someone who is prepared to be the defense secretary. We're talking about a volatile world. You've got North Korea acting up again. You've got the situation in Ukraine, of course. We've got Iran, that situation, military readiness, serious question. There's the talk about Greenland potentially becoming a territory of the United States, specifically because China encroaching into the Arctic. We have standards that have been lowered over time within the military in order to try to help recruitment, which has been down. And you tune in order to hear this individual's answers to these questions, and you find U.S. senators asking about affairs and whether he drank too much at an event. What an embarrassment for this country these people are. You want to talk about not being qualified? But I guess that's democracy. People of Massachusetts, people of West Virginia, these are the individuals. You go down the list, you get what you vote for. Senator Gillibrand of New York, I can't even bring myself to play the audio of her. She's just such a screeching. It's just, it's hard to hear. But what she was trying to attack him on was in his evaluation of military readiness and that it's not good to lower standards in order to allow certain people that otherwise would not make it to get in, particularly when it comes to certain areas of the military, certain physical requirements that have long been tested that just because of physical makeup, the average woman is not able to pass, the lowering of the standards so that they could pass it. And he has, in the context and name of military preparedness, been against lowering standards for those purposes. And then, of course, the disadvantages of having a brand new mom out on the front line, how that may not be the best idea. So she turns into this, hysterical person going on and on about how he's degrading women because of his position on the lowering of standards in that aspect. And here is what he was asked by Senator Cotton, some clarification on this.
Indicated to me that he has plans to change whether or not women would have access to these roles. However, I would point out, ensuring that standards are equal and high is of importance to him and great importance to me. Because in those ground combat roles, what is true is that the weight of the ruck on your back doesn't change. The weight of the 155 round that you have to carry doesn't change. The weight of the 240 Bravo machine gun you might have to carry doesn't change. And so whether it's a man or a woman, they have to meet the same high standards. And Senator, in any place where those things have been eroded or in courses, criteria have been changed in order to meet quotas, racial quotas or gender quotas, that is putting a focus on something other than readiness, standards, meritocracy, and lethality. So that's the kind of review I'm talking about, not whether women have access to ground combat.
Okay. So
Now, of course, the point here is that, as usual, comments that he's made are taken out of context for political purposes. But I think there's a broader point here that needs to be recognized about what truly constitutes caring about women. The reason for many of these tests, these different drills that are done to prepare for conditions that the individual may face. It's not just for funsies. Now, there's a psychological component to it. There are a number of components to it, but it all culminates to this point of recognition that there could very well be conditions that you find yourself in that require you to be able to do these things. Otherwise, you won't make it. Is it really compassionate to lower those standards so that women specifically that otherwise wouldn't be able to pass the standards so they can get in and then find themselves in combat somewhere unable to do those things to save her own life? You think about the insanity of that. You're talking about, oh, women, we care about women. How dare you degrade women? What, you want to lower standards so that they get put in a position that if the standards were held in place as high standards, might prevent them from coming into harm's way? You want to lower those so that they actually get into harm's way that they can't handle? I can't think of anything less compassionate than that. I mean, if you have a daughter, if you're sympathetic to this sort of political posturing and like, well, gosh, it does kind of seem unfair if the standards are that high and girls aren't able to do it and they really want to serve and it just seems a little unfair. Think about your own daughter. Your daughter taking on a job or a career that is dangerous, and then your daughter dies on the job, and you find out that they weren't trained properly. Would you be happy about that? Would you be like, well, you know what? Well, at least, though, they let her have a try at it. At least she got to do it. Sure, they lowered the standards for her, but otherwise she wouldn't have been able to get herself in that situation. I'm glad she did. Would that be your position? We should want the high standards, not only for ourselves as a nation to make sure that we're raising that bar so that we collectively, our military gets better, but for the individual soldier, so that they aren't put into a position that is life or death that they may not be equipped to deal with. What sort of person do you have to be to want to do that? Well, apparently, we saw on full display a number of them, including Senator Gillibrand of New York. Aside from the political nature of this, if you just look at the reality of what it is that these people are arguing for, you realize how insane it is. And how, as usual, it is the opposite of what they claim. This idea that we should lower standards so that females that otherwise would not physically be capable of carrying out some of these duties in the military are able to get in the military, and that somehow is in the name of helping women and girls. It does the opposite. But this is the world, 2025, that the Democrats have brought us. Fortunately, they're not really in charge to the degree that they were a year ago. And you can tell it by their behavior. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. There's some other audio. I'm going to evaluate here while we're listening to the news whether I'm going to go ahead. I think I might have time to get it in there from the Hegseth confirmation hearings yesterday. Listen, this was not only, I think, ultimately, I think it was a positive thing. Now, in the full scope, it's negative because it puts on full display to the world, particularly our enemies, that there's one major political party that has no interest in a strong military in this country, that when it comes to the very important decision as to whom it is it's going to be in these positions, defense secretary being the Hegseth nomination, that they don't care. They're not asking questions about military readiness. That's not their focus. So that's bad for the country. A silver lining, however, is reminding people who are observing these hearings why it is that they voted Democrats out of power. In case people forget, time goes by and you kind of forget what you were feeling or thinking at the time. I mean, you may not, but some people, swing voters, they tune into this and they're like, yep. And now I know why I switched my vote from Democrat to Republican. This is good for Trump. It's good for the Trump administration. And it's good if it continues, if they are unable to, one, control their emotions, and if the different nominees handle them as well as Hegseth did yesterday. Not everyone's that good at it. You know, he did a great job at it. This is going to, I believe, take some of the maybe votes and push them over into the yes camp because they do not want to be associated with these imbeciles in the Democrat Party. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. From the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, the LA fires show what happens when you put DEI above standards and the ability to perform the job duties required. Now, think about this, actually. We are told that DEI strengthens performance. This is what we're told because there is strength in diversity. Now, as crazy as this sounds, think about this. If we accept that premise that we are given from the Democrats, and clearly in Los Angeles with the fire department there, arguably the mayor as well, then their answer to the problem is that we need more of it. That would have to be their answer. If DEI strengthens and makes things better, the strength is in our diversity. Diversity in the way that they define it, sexual orientation, skin color. That is what creates a better performance. Then we need to get rid of more white men in the fire department in Los Angeles and take more individuals that don't have any backgrounds in firefighting. It should be noted, these three gals who are in charge of the fire divisions out there in Los Angeles that are all lesbians named some form of Kristen, none of them had firefighting backgrounds. None. So the problem is there are too many people that are within the Los Angeles Fire Department that do have a background in firefighting. And because the answer is always DEI, that makes things better. So they probably ought to just go ahead and fire half the white straight males who actually have firefighting as a background and replace them with random individuals that are people of color, lesbians, LGBTQ, throw some trans in there, some non-binaries, and that should fix the problem. If you accept that premise that diversity is what makes things better. I'm not sure that anyone could disagree with that assessment. Certainly not those who claim that DEI is a positive. If it's in play and things go wrong as they have in Los Angeles, then the answer must be there's not enough DEI. You think that's reality? That's their reality. These people are crazy. People are dying because of it. Dying. Part of the inaugural parade is going to be a trash truck. Is it going to be the same one?
Yeah, it's not just a trash truck. It's the trash truck. Yes.
That was at the Green Bay rally up there. No kidding, the exact same one. Do you think Trump's going to be driving it?
I hope he is.
Oh my gosh, would that not? The fact that it's in there, it's just so great. It is so great, and let me tell you why. Now I'm sure people on the left can dismiss it. Oh, well, that's just unbecoming. You know what it is? It is another demonstration, a symbol, a meaningful symbol, that Trump represents us, not the establishment. This isn't a situation in which, I won, this is how, particularly Democrats with people of color and people of faith and all these different, and women, they tell them, I'm there for you all the way, I'm the one for you. They get their vote and then, all right, don't need you, again, until election time, of course. This is a demonstration of, hey, just because I was elected, look, it's still the same. Not that he needs to do anything symbolically to show that, because he got reelected this time around because he showed that 4 years ago. And particularly after 4 years, the last 4 years we've had a real side-by-side comparison. It's like the old Pepsi challenge. They were these commercials for a while where they would have Coke and Pepsi set up, and they'd be, not labeled, and they would have people try each one. Which one do you like the most? And of course, the whole point was to show people saying, "Ooh, this one, oh, it's Pepsi. Look at that, it's Pepsi, it's Pepsi." You have the side-by-side comparison right there. That's what we had: Trump, Biden, and then people are like, "Okay, Pepsi challenge on." We would like that one over there. I like the fact that Trump's having that trash hauler in there because it's once again different than what we're used to. And frankly, Republicans as well. As voters, it's not just Democrats. Republicans who are told, vote for us, we're going to cut spending, vote for us, we're going to have fiscal responsibility, vote for us, we're going to make sure that, we stop this omnibus bill stuff, and we're going to, vote on every single thing and vote for, all of this different stuff. And then they get in there and, well, you don't understand. It's more complicated than that. Or, well, if we did that, the Democrats in the Senate, they wouldn't sign it. Or, well, Biden, you got to understand, Biden's in the White House, so he would veto it anyway. Republicans are subject to that as well. Vote for the days up to the election, all these promises, and then all of a sudden it changes. Not for Trump. Trash truck before the election, trash truck after the election. News update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 46. And on Friday, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon. Otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 55.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. If Trump was the driver of the garbage truck in the inaugural parade, and then he could dump mannequins of Biden, Kamala, and Garland, Jean-Pierre on the street. Or pick them up. I'm going to take you where you belong. Regarding this claim that is made by, it was made specifically by one of the DEI hires in the Los Angeles Fire Department, and that is that it's important whenever somebody is trapped in a burning building and they think that they're going to die any moment, that when the firefighter shows up, that the firefighter looks like them. That way they know that firefighter understands what they're going through. Now, I've never been on the brink of death, caught in a fire, so I can't definitively say that I would not be worried about that. I just think all I would be worried about is, thank God there's another human being that can get me out of here. But to that point, someone texted in, well, if that's the case, then only wheelchair-bound firefighters can save people who are in wheelchairs trapped in fires. Only little children firefighters can save little kids. Yeah, if that is so important, think about that for a moment. Yeah, we sometimes get lost forest for the trees. This presentation, and it's in law enforcement, and we hear it in other divisions as well. It's important that, they know the person that's coming to save them looks like them. So how does that operate? Whenever somebody calls 911 because there's a house fire, how is it you determine what the race and gender and sexual orientation of the person is to make sure that you are sending in the appropriate firefighter so that they feel comfortable knowing that firefighter knows what they're going through? Do they do that? I suspect that they don't. It's random. So even if that absurd notion was a reality, that it did matter whether or not you were, a black person needs a black firefighter, a lesbian a person trapped in a burning home needs a lesbian firefighter, a white male needs a white male. Even if that were reality, it's irrelevant because they don't know those status, the status of the individuals trapped in that. And what if it's multiple? What if it's an apartment complex and you've got lesbians, you've got transgenders, you've got white males, you've got just a whole rainbow of people? What do? First off, how do you take roll to find all of that out? And then what do you just go down a list and calls? Now, I know they're off tonight, but, we do need a one-legged transgender. We're told that there's one on the 3rd floor over here at the Palms Apartments, and so we got to get Jamal over here to rescue that. Is that how that's going to work?
The wrong one in.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yep,
I'm
hold on.
sorry.
Let's get the right one in here. So
Yeah,
you're going to have to wait another 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, and can you imagine? What do you think would happen if you had a firefighter who's a white guy, goes in, and it's a black woman he's going to save? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll go get a black firefighter for you, a black female firefighter for you. And then, of course, the woman dies in the fire while trying to make sure that the proper person was, there in order for her to feel most secure. Do you think that would pass? Do you think that the people on the left who push DEI would be like, nope, yep, that's perfectly fine. It's a good thing that white guy didn't save the black woman. How stupid all of this stuff is. I'm sorry. I'm telling you, people on the left, the more that they are allowed to make these decisions and the more you just break down their belief systems and the things that not only they talk about, but they're able to implement. Again, Los Angeles, this is all occurring at it's all playing out the way that it's playing out because of the absolute, complete, unfettered stupidity of the left. And people are dying because of it. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, so Biden has released a farewell letter saying that it has been the privilege of his life to serve the nation for another 50 years. And so this is, I guess this is going to be part of the theme of the speech. He's given a speech from the Oval Office tonight. I know we all just can't wait. It's going to be a late night for him. Part of the letter says, quote, today we have the strongest economy in the world, created record 16.6 million new jobs, wages are up, inflation's down. I mean, everything's wonderful. Everything's wonderful. Manufacturing is coming back to America. We're leading the world in science innovation. We beat Big Pharma. More people have health insurance today in America than ever before. Well, sure, yeah, that's why they're going around assassinating CEOs of health insurance companies. Just keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Joe Biden might as well just have an Oval Office speech in which he says, hey, just in case Americans were wondering whether or not we get it, we do not. If you're wondering whether or not message was received in November, it was not received. If everything, the way Joe Biden is exiting here, in terms of his portrayal of how his 4 years were, he has been the most successful president that this country has ever seen in the history of its existence. Yet somehow he was so unpopular, his own party overturned his election in the primaries for all 50 states. Does that seem like the sort of thing that you would do? If you were a party and you held elections in 50 states and you renominated the current president of the United States and he was the single most successful president ever, everything's better than it's ever been, would you go, no, you know what, we think we want to undo that election and just handpick someone and tell the voters this is who you're now going to support? I don't think so. That's not usually how that works. Keep it up. I mean, it was not long into the Biden administration when the economy began going south because of the spending, and the Inflation Reduction Act, of course, kicked it into high gear. And we all noted, all of us who are interested in the obvious truth said, when you print more money and the government spends more money, inflation goes up. That's a pretty constant. And that, of course, is exactly what happened. And their denial of that, I said at the time, this is going to bite them in the butt. Because the only thing worse than receiving bad service is when you complain about it. You're told that actually everything's fine. Oh, no, everything's great. You don't have bad service. That's infuriating. Yet that's what the American people were told by the Democrats for years. Oh, no, everything's fine. No, inflation, no. Well, it's transitory. Well, it'll just be through the summer. Well, maybe. Well, it's actually not that bad whatsoever. It doesn't affect normal people. It only affects rich people. They just kept telling the people who are complaining, you don't know what you're talking about. So for Biden to exit the White House, repeating that pattern and telling all of us how wonderful things are under the Democrat rule, everything's been fantastic. The economy's better than everything. Just keep it up. Keep it up. By the way, well, of course, now when they talk about the 16.6 million jobs, the vast majority of those jobs were not jobs that were created. They were just people that were told, okay, you can come back to work now. Those were not created jobs any more than you have a restaurant that opens their door at 6 a.m. and the employees, scramblers, scramblers who do the show on Friday, they don't create half a dozen to, however many jobs every single day because they opened the door and the employees came back to work from the previous day. Those are not new jobs. Those are just people coming back to work from the previous day. Same thing with COVID. Though instead of a day, it was weeks or months. Even the number, and of course, we learned that they were, in addition to that, at the end of last year, overestimated the numbers by over about 1 million. Even the small amount above the jobs that were just people returning to their jobs, they were going to non-Americans. There are less, I think these numbers came out last week, there are less Americans working today than there were 4 years ago, before the pandemic, certainly before Biden took office. It would be before the pandemic. There are less Americans working today. That's the truth of it. Those are facts. There was yesterday, during a committee hearing in the House, an exchange between two Congress ladies that resulted in one challenging the other to take it outside. We'll have that audio coming up next. That's right, all those home loans, great ones, in fact. If you want a mediocre home loan, there's plenty of places you can do that. If you want a great home loan, a great refinancing, great customer service is one of those things that it can just make the biggest difference, the most tremendous difference between whether or not you have a positive experience or a negative experience. And you think to yourself, well, yeah, that goes without saying, but look at the way some businesses operate. You would think that it was a secretly hidden formula, that if you just treat people really nicely with respect and the way, honestly, you would want to be treated, you would think that very few people in industries actually recognized and understood this. The weird thing about it is it doesn't really even cost anything more just to be nice and to treat people with respect and, give them the service that you would want. And that's one of the reasons that the Carricker team at iwantagreathomeloan.com has been so successful and why for, I don't know, almost 14 years plus, I've been recommending them. It's why I've used them. I tell family and friends, and I tell all of you when it comes to your home loan refinancing needs or just any questions you may have, it all starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. Yesterday, the House Oversight Committee descending into chaos. Jasmine Crockett, Democrat from Tennessee, she's a nut job. Representative Nancy Mace, Republican, South Carolina. Democrats think she's a nut job. She's certainly outspoken, not necessarily one of my favorites, but nonetheless, this was the exchange between the two of them yesterday during a hearing.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do
not
call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I'm a grown
which
woman.
of those
I'm 47 years
emails
old. I have
actually
more
have
feelings than you ever
chairman
will.
Order.
Take it outside.
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order.
I felt like it was 4 a.m. at a Waffle House and some, I kept expecting to see Jasmine take those earrings off and like, okay, you ready to go? Every time something like this happens, I think about every so often there's a declaration made about how if only women were in charge of everything, we wouldn't have wars. We wouldn't have, everything would just be so much more polite. If only women were in charge of stuff, that would, everything, we would be so much more agreeable with one another. And I'm like, what? First off, there would not be a single Real Housewives of anything if that were the case. I mean, I'm sorry, women don't magically just get along with one another instead of have conflict. Now, I'm not saying that my point isn't that, anytime, this is what you get when you get women that are lawmakers. I'm pushing back against this argument that some have made that just because, who was it that said if you was it Nikki Haley made that comment about if you want something done right, have a woman or whatever. Yeah, it's when she was really trying to win over some people on the left. I think Sally Fields once gave an acceptance speech for an award. I think it was her, and she was like, "We'd have no wars if only women were, all of the leaders in the world were women." I was like, I don't think that's the case. Well, Jasmine Crockett and Nancy Grace certainly demonstrating that yesterday.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 46. And on Friday, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon. Otherwise, mostly sunny skies with a high near 55.
Man, I lost this story, or did I? Oh, no, here it is. This is pretty good. Evidently, I did not see this video that went viral. There was a Philadelphia Eagles fan seen on video ranting profanely at a Green Bay Packer fan. The video of the verbal abuse was recorded during the NFC wildcard game on Sunday and showed a man in an Eagles jacket calling a female Packers fan the C word. That's like the worst one. Is that the N word for women? It's in terms of the hierarchy, like there's no worse word for a person of color or a black person than the N word. For women, it's that C word, right?
Yeah.
Is that like that is the
I would say so.
Universally, that's what I've understood it to be. I mean, every time I use that word, I'm told that. I'm kidding. So this guy who's an Eagles fan, clearly misogynistic and, has no respect for women as a white male. I think he's white. I think that's what I saw in the video. He's a male. But anyway, he called her the C word as well as ugly and dumb. Well, the individual was identified as Ryan Caldwell, and he works for a diversity, equity, inclusion management consulting firm. Maybe his justification is, well, I treat everyone this way. I'm just including you as a female in the way that I would treat anyone else. Diversity, equity, and inclusion firm called BCT Partners. He also uses the pronouns they, them on his company profile. On the website, BCT Partners claims to aim to harness the power of diversity, insight, and innovation to transform lives, accelerate equity, and create lasting change, and call women the C word, of course, too.
Is that parentheses?
Yeah. Now, so this article says he's under investigation by the employer. Okay, so let's see. The company said in a statement, the management at BCT Partners has been made aware of a video circulating involving an employee making offensive remarks outside of the workplace. BCT Partners denounces this type of behavior, and we take this matter extremely seriously, adding, as an organization that has always stood for inclusivity, the conduct displayed was completely unacceptable and stands in direct opposition to our company values. But in reality, if I were him, I'd be like, here's what I would say. What did I do that violates inclusivity? I'd make him answer that if I'm this guy. I'd be like, hey, I'm not going to. No, I wasn't being exclusive. Tell me how what I said is a violation of inclusivity. The statement continued, we have already begun a full investigation as an internal personnel matter to determine what actions will be taken. Now, what full investigation needs to be taken? You know what he said. You know it's your employee. What else is there to investigate? What are you going to find out whether actually she is one? Is that what did she have it come in? Like, all right, well, what did she? Well, okay, we can kind of understand. Is that what sort of investigation they're going to carry out? Seems to me like you pretty much have all the evidence right now. The company said, we sincerely apologize to everyone affected by this behavior and remain committed to fostering a culture of respect for all. So anyway, there's a follow-up story. Apparently, he did lose his job. So let's see. This from Fox News. Eagle fan seen in vile tirade against female Packers supporter loses job at DEI-focused New Jersey company. All right. Well, well, it's almost, not always, but you got to admit, when it comes to this sort of situation, you almost know, you're like, it's got to be a lefty. It has to be a they, them. I misgendered him. I said a man. According to his profile on his former employer's site, he is a they, them. One of the tactics that the media takes when it comes to dealing with conservatives is doxing. This is where they will take an individual, and sometimes it's more subtle than other times, but a lot of times if there is somebody that is an elected official, or a commentator that is conservative, and there's something controversial going on in which people on the left really want to get them, they'll post like a picture of their house in the newspaper and pretend like, oh well, no, we're not trying to do it, and you can see the address on there, and they play dumb, like, oh no, we're not trying to put this person in danger by blasting all over the internet and our online newspaper and the physical newspaper where this person lives. No, we're not trying to do that. The attempted assassin of Brett Kavanaugh, according to court filings, you know how he found where he lived to assassinate him? Because the pictures of the house that were included in media coverage. I mean, these are Supreme Court justices that Democrat U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer stood on the House steps and said, if you touch Roe v. Wade, you aren't going to know what is coming for you, specifically listing off some of the justices, Kavanaugh being one of them. There's a desire to protest, to intimidate the Supreme Court justices to the point that they may not go through with releasing their opinion on the case. And media outlets decided it's a good idea. Well, let's just put up pictures of their homes. Daily Wire reporting that the man who turned himself in after traveling across the country to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh found the justice's home through media reports on the illegal protest outside Kavanaugh's home, according to court filings. Authorities arrested 26-year-old Nicholas Roski in 2022 in Kavanaugh's Maryland neighborhood, carrying a bag full of weapons and burglary tools after he called the police on himself. Court filings show that Roski described himself as actively suicidal and said he wanted to do something positive before I die by taking out Kavanaugh before the justice could vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. He found Kavanaugh's neighborhood online, according to court documents. He saw an article with a picture of the family house, including the house number. It was as simple as that. Quote, I was thinking about killing Brett Kavanaugh, then killing myself. He said to the officers who arrived on the scene, according to the court filings. Then I texted my sister that I love her, and then she called me and told me not to do it, and then I called 911. I saw the news. It was upsetting. It was already suicidal, the news about, the soon-to-be. This was the illegal, the violation of federal law that prompted all of this, in which they were going to be releasing that finding, that opinion, rather. And he said it was something to, I guess, like a protest, I guess. The media knows that there are psychopaths out there on the left that, if provided the information, there's a good chance that they will be given the breadcrumbs to carry out assassinations against people like, in this case, Kavanaugh. If you can guarantee, if there were a reversal here, and I know this doesn't happen, but let's just say that there was going to be some Supreme Court decision that was going to be pro-abortion, and you had Republican senators calling out Supreme Court justices by name, saying you won't know what hit you, and then you had a Republican attorney general allowing pro-life protesters to violate federal law by protesting outside the Supreme Court justice's home, that the coverage would not include by the media. If the media does an article about these crazy right-wing protesters, knowing that there are others out there, they certainly wouldn't take a picture of the home and the address of the home and publish it. In fact, they'd probably note in the article that they're being careful not to, because these Supreme Court justices' lives are in danger by right-wing activists. But if it's the other way around, print it all day. I'm surprised in their online editions they didn't have a link to Google Maps so that the would-be assassin could more easily find Kavanaugh's home. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, your home, it's probably going to be the largest investment that you will probably make in your lifetime. So that is why you want the best of the best in your corner, and that is why I recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, with the Pyramid team, they don't upsell and they don't use scare tactics on you. They do understand that sometimes the best solution for you and your home isn't always a new roof, but, maybe just a simple roof repair. The Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, and from the insurance process to just figuring out the best materials and design for your home, they really do make that entire roofing process as simple as possible. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Former Representative Tulsi Gabbard has won the complete endorsement of the National Sheriff's Association, and the organization is urging the Senate to confirm her to serve as Director of National Intelligence for the incoming Trump administration in a letter issued to Senator Cotton of Arkansas. The association's president, Karen Donahue, who is an Idaho sheriff, urged leaders to confirm Gabbard. The letter reads in part, Ms. Gabbard has demonstrated a commitment to addressing the critical disconnect between our intelligence agencies and local law enforcement in preparing for sophisticated and pervasive threats. The recent terror attacks in New Orleans serves as a stark reminder of the need for seamless coordination. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, actionable leads provided by sheriffs in Harris County, Texas, and Fulton County, Georgia, proved instrumental. These events, like the attacks on 9/11, underscore the urgent need for local law enforcement to have a seat at the table during strategic planning discussions. Ms. Gabbard has pledged to make this a priority. Ms. Gabbard's unparalleled experience at the local, state, and federal levels of government, combined with her leadership as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, makes her uniquely qualified for this critical role. Her proven ability to lead and her deep understanding of national security threats have earned the confidence and respects of sheriffs across the country. And I think it's next week is when her confirmation hearings come up. Now, it's the Gabbards and the RFK Juniors of the world that Democrats really want to prevent being part of this cabinet. Why is that? They don't want people to see a Trump administration that is a reflection of what people tell themselves they want, and it's bipartisanship. Tulsi Gabbard has been a lifelong Democrat candidate for the presidency, Democrat member of Congress. RFK Jr., lifelong Democrat from the Kennedy family, of course. Former Democrat candidate for the presidency until the Democrats rigged the election, and then he ran as an independent. You see, they can say what they want about Trump, but when you watch Trump's actual actions, political labels don't matter to him. He doesn't care, particularly in the context of a cabinet. He doesn't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. Are you somebody that can get the job done? That's what matters to him. Isn't that what we say we want? Isn't that what Democrats claim with their virtue signaling, that they're all about? Oh, the big tent. Oh, we're such a big tent. Really? Because you sure run people out of that tent a lot. You ran Tulsi Gabbard out. You ran RFK Jr. out. You ran RFK Jr.'s running mate out. You ran the gal out whose name escapes me. We played her audio a few times. She was one of the top strategic fundraisers for the DNC a couple weeks ago. She announced that she had been run out. You ran out Joe Rogan. You ran out Elon Musk. I mean, these are just some of the high-profile ones. It isn't uncommon to see stories pop up every few weeks about a Democrat lawmaker in a random state that has switched to the Republican Party, or a sheriff who is elected as a Democrat switch over to the Republican Party. The Democrats, they may talk about a large tent, but they're very, very selective about whom it is they allow in there. As usual, projection. And in this case, it's sort of the opposite of projection, in which they claim they're the party of an open tent. They're the party that cares more about country than partisan politics. Yet Donald Trump is the one that is bringing into his cabinet individuals, or attempting to, that are, I mean, two of them former Democrat presidential candidates. And who's trying to stop him? Who's doing everything they can to trash him? Who's doing everything that they can to prevent that from occurring? Well, it's the party of the big tent, the Democrat Party. You know, any time there's, a Republican would join a Democrat administration, and it has happened. Was it Vilsack? Was that the name? During the Obama administration, when he was a transportation secretary. It's happened before. And, it's just so wonderful. So wonderful. Obama, he's just like Lincoln. Just like Abraham Lincoln. Bringing that group of rivals together, that band of rivals. Trump does it. We got to destroy them at all costs. RFK Jr. is a nutcase science denier. Tulsi Gabbard is a Putin puppet who is a Russian asset that needs to be spied on and was spied on by the current administration. Regarding that, Tulsi Gabbard, she's going to be hit big with, Russian sympathizer, and she met with Assad in Syria. And, they're going to portray her as somehow a potential danger to our national security. If I were her, I would simply respond with, if I was a danger to the national security, you all would know it, because the Biden administration had me tracked and spied on. Followed through airports. Followed around as she traveled. Had the government spying on her. So they'll know. You all should have that intelligence. Go into your skiff over there and find out what information, while I was being tracked by our government, while I was being spied on, if there's anything at all that would pop up as any sort of concern about me in terms of national security, you all have that information. That's what my response would be. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. There's a piece in Breitbart noting that late-night comedians Jimmy Kimmel, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, in their monologues spend their time talking about the L.A. fires, blaming and attacking Trump. None of the Democrats that are actually in charge of Los Angeles, none of the Democrats that are in charge of the fire departments in Los Angeles, none of the leadership like Gavin Newsom, none of the Democrats who actually are in charge. Oh, it's Trump. Trump's the bad guy. Trump's the bad guy. Jimmy Kimmel falsely accused Trump of being racist, claiming they made racist comments about firefighters. What's interesting is he didn't actually play any clips of Trump making racist comments about firefighters. That's weird. Don't you think that's something Jimmy Kimmel probably would have done? If Trump made racist comments about L.A. firefighters and they don't play a clip of it, wow, that's weird. That's bad producing there. He should be firing some of the producers of his show for not having those clips available. Jon Stewart, as well as Stephen Colbert, attacked Republicans for having strings attached, or talk about having strings attached to funding to help with the disaster out there. This is the problem. So it is acceptable for people to take money that is meant for the fires and to help with the aftermath of the fires and use it for something else. We're not supposed to say, no, this has to be used in a meaningful way to help the fires and help the victims of the fires. That's what's supposed to happen? Apparently, according to the left. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.